In 2014, Sony was hacked.
Tonight, the FBI is on the case, and
now the latest on that major hack attack against Sony.
Sony Pictures Entertainment tells CNN it's still investigating what it calls a very sophisticated cyber attack.
This was a big deal. It caused huge issues that the company really struggled to recover from, and it took several days and people working on whiteboards to be able to fully recover. It also led to the company releasing movies on Netflix. You might remember the movie The Interview, which plays a very important role in this story. So we're going to talk a little bit about the hack, but we're also mainly going to talk about the group behind the hack, also known as Hidden Cobra on Dariel, and they identify themselves as the Guardians of Peace. This group is believed to be working as a function of the North Korean government. But what else do we know about the group? Well, let's start with the Sony hack and work from there. In 2014, Sony announced that it was working on a movie called The Interview starring James Franco and Seth Rogen, where they both act as Hollywood reporters that travel to North Korea to interview Kim Jong-un and eventually assassinate him. As you can imagine, this wasn't news that North Korea really enjoyed hearing. That is where the Lazarus Group, who call themselves the Guardians of Peace, come into the picture. Now, this isn't the first incident that they have been active. They had already targeted the South Korean government and military. They'd also targeted the United States, but this was definitely something that they wanted to act. Numerous threats were made, including terrorist threats for movie theaters that aired the movie. That led Sony to actually pulling the film altogether and choosing to not release it. But again, after backlash in the other direction, including from President Obama to not give in to the threats, Sony decided again to release the film. And that is when the hack happened. And this was a wide-ranging and brutal cyber attack.
We will respond. We will respond proportionally, and will respond in a place and time and manner that we choose.
It lasted several days. It cost millions of dollars. It had a lot of information leaked out publicly, which caused some drama in Hollywood, and it led to a number of films being released that hadn't yet been officially released, including The Interview. So how did North Korea pull this attack off? After all, how is it that the Hermit Kingdom, a country that is really supposed to be frozen in time in the 1950s, how is it that they're sophisticated enough to do this? And while the method that North Korea trains its hackers is not 1000% known, how is it that they managed to do this? How is it they managed to build a whole team, the Lazarus Group, to do this? Well, this is where it gets very interesting. North Korea is believed to farm its hackers domestically. The brightest kids in school are recruited to go to more advanced and academically rigorous institutions, and eventually national universities, where they are introduced to computer science and other scientific topics. And that's where some of them are able to get into cybersecurity. They're given a lab to work within. They're given computer science and cybersecurity knowledge. They're actually comparable to a lot of the more sophisticated and wealthy nations out there in the world. This is how the Lazarus Group, which is considered to be the North Korean threat group, a lot of people will consider it to be the only threat group that exists in North Korea with different arms that exist within it. That is slightly disputed amongst different researchers, but it kind of gives you a sense for just how big Lazarus Group is, because it is believed to be thousands of people strong. And not just that, Lazarus Group has shown that they're not scrubs either. They've demonstrated capabilities that some of the most sophisticated threat groups out there have demonstrated. You can refer to their page on the MITRE ATT&CK framework, and it is lengthy. They have all kinds of techniques that they've been known to be using, showing that they can go from password spraying and brute forcing to some of the more advanced and niche techniques. They also employed a very wide range of tools, some custom, some public. They've also employed some other forms of malware like WannaCry and Hot Croissant. I don't even know if Hot Croissant is technically malicious, but I just wanted to say Hot Croissant. Comment Hot Croissant. Needless to say, North Korea gets stigmatized as a poor and economically impoverished country and unsophisticated, but don't let their unsophistication, at least in the military side, fool you. In cyberspace, they're really at an equal playing level than other countries. You pair that with a company like Sony, which is just like most other corporations, big and vulnerable, and you realize that there can be a problem. And that led to Sony being hacked. Since 2014, Lazarus Group has been kind of oscillating between cyber espionage and cyber crime. Needless to say, the North Korean government has identified that cyber crime can be a way that they can circumvent a lot of the rigorous economic sanctions that they are under, aka stealing money. Yet their government has been pretty savvy in denying any responsibility of these attacks. In fact, they denied the 2014 Sony attack. Nonetheless, the US government and other governments basically attributed this attack to the Lazarus Group and the North Koreans. This report by Novetta really goes to show a lot of the more technical details about Lazarus Group, including the attack on Sony. They talk about how Lazarus Group employed a wide range of methods to attack the company, including how they were able to maintain persistence, migrate access, and perform actions on objective. They aren't doing anything special. They're doing things that sophisticated threat groups do. They're simply exploiting vulnerabilities and trying to hide their footsteps, all while they expand access. In the Sony attack, something that was a little bit different that they did was deploying wiper malware. We've talked a little bit about wiper malware as it relates to the Russia-Ukraine war because we have seen that there, but they did try to wipe malware in the case of Sony, but they really did a mixture of wiping, leaking, and stealing. The information that they leaked publicly, they did so in an effort to degrade Sony's reputation. And another thing that they did to kind of hide attribution to them was they attacked from a number of command and control nodes from all around the world to hide their attack. All of this is to say Lazarus Group hacked Sony basically as any other threat group would. They just targeted known vulnerabilities. They didn't do anything necessarily special, but what they did do, they did incredibly well and to a high degree of sophistication. At no point should you mistake North Korea's typical lack of sophistication to mean that in cyberspace that same principle applies, because that's not true at all. In cyberspace, North Korea by means of Lazarus Group appears to be highly sophisticated. They appear to be a peer to other major players in cyberspace. They've proven that not only by attacking Sony, but by attacking the South Korean government and the United States. They're capable of some of the largest and most complex cyber attacks that have ever happened in the industry. And they can do so to achieve the goals set forth by their government, which again is pretty savvy in not accepting responsibility like other countries or threat groups tend to do. While the Sony hack is remembered for the comedy movie that preceded the hack, the Lazarus Group is no laughing matter.